All right, I'm now joined by a very special longtime friend of the pod, somebody who I've come to call a friend of the last couple of years. I'm very grateful to have him back on the pod. It's been a little bit, but Brian O'Grady, welcome back. It's great to see you, man. We've done a lot of these pods before in the off season. It's my favorite time of the year, so it's great to see you. And are you ready to talk some baseball? There's a couple things I want to get your unique take on.
Yeah, man, it's great to be back and absolutely a lot of stuff happening. Definitely looking forward to talking with you, man.
I love it. So I saw your tweet the other day about Sasaki, who went to the Dodgers, and he said he wanted to go to a small market. So I'm glad he finally did that. The small market LA Dodgers. When you think back to your time in Japan a couple of years ago and facing him and seeing like what his potential could be now, like how do you feel about the fit there with Sasaki?
Oh, first, I'm sad to see him go to the Dodgers, definitely, as I said in that tweet. I hoped he didn't go there. But he is a stud. There's no doubt about that. I mean, throws the ball really hard, great splitter. Um, he's long and lanky. It feels like even though he throws hard, it feels like it gets on you. Um, my first at bat against him over there, and this was in 2022. So he was on the map for sure, but he still, um, I think that year might have been when he like really kind of blew up. My first at bat, I'm sitting there thinking, he's going to throw 100, ready for it, and first two pitches, man, he dropped splitters for strikes, and I'm like, oh shit, you know, and their place was I said this in that tweet too. I only faced him in Chiba, and that place was they had like a grayish batter's eye, so I always struggled to see the ball there anyway. And you put him on the mound, and I mean that's just a very tough combination. It was like it's right on the water over there, and it's like cold, windy, usually rainy. I feel like so it was just a tough place to hit anyway, and he was obviously very good. So it was just hard facing him. I faced Yamamoto over there and Senga. They were all in my division, as was Sasaki, and they're all really good. Obviously, we see what Yamamoto and Senga have done in the MLB. And like I said, I thought for me personally, uh, Roki was the toughest at the time. Um, the one guy on Twitter tweeted it back at me after I tweeted that out. He said, confirmed O'Grady was 0 for 6 against Sasaki with 5 strikeouts. And I'm like, oh well, thanks, man. That I said that that sixth one was a hard line out to the warning track in left field, which it was, but it was just funny. So he definitely got the better of me over there, and to see him in that rotation, I mean, those are some serious arms in that rotation now. There's no doubt about it.
Well, also like I had Strom on. He was talking about just like when guys throw splitters at the bottom of the zone, but also have like fastballs that they can run up at the top. Is there anything harder to hit than you have to cover the entire distance? Like I feel like that's impossible.
No, and that's the whole thing. And that's why Japan was so tough because typically American and Spanish pitchers don't really have that combination. Not the splitter. That's a very everybody in Japan throws that. There are guys here who do it, but it's just not the same. So, in order for like for example, Senga, he's throwing 96, 97 at that top of the zone to me. And then the splitter, if it didn't start at like my nose height wise, it was going to be in the dirt. So it's very tough to pick up the difference between those hard splitters that are bottoming out like that and a four seam fastball that's going to end up above your eyeballs. So yeah, that is absolutely the battle. It's almost like you just got to pick one or the other and just assume it's going to be that. So it's just it's a different style over there for an American hitter, something you're not used to. So that's kind of where the game is going though. Over here too is the top of the zone fastballs and something going below it. So it definitely makes it tougher as a hitter. But I just think the splitter is tougher to pick up than say a slider.
Yeah.
So it's just an interesting and tough combination.
I mean, I feel like the high heater is becoming even more popular. Like as a Nats guy, like Sean Doolittle is like the de facto pitching coach, is telling all these like young guys coming up, just like pound the top of the zone with high fastballs. And it's obviously worked out a lot. Um, I'm curious though, why do you think Sasaki decided to come out at 23 instead of wait until he was 25? Because I read that he needs like 6 years of service time before becoming a traditional free agent. That feels weird.
Yeah, and I'm sure Japan wasn't very happy about all this because one, their young star pitcher over there is now gone. Um, and two, if he waited, the team would have got a bigger compensation, more money for him to come over, depending on the contract he signed. But I know Sasaki was a big time high school prospect over there. He may have had something in his contract about them letting him pursue MLB after however many years. Um, for him, my guess would just be that his ultimate goal was to play in the MLB. He probably felt like he did everything he wanted to maybe over there in Japan. I know they hadn't won, but he threw a perfect game. I think he got like 52 straight batters out or something ridiculous like that at one point. Um, so he just thought it was time, and $6 million is $6 million. It's not as much as he would have gotten if it was just a regular free agent deal, but still $6 million, and he'll have an opportunity to make more through that bonus system they kind of have now for rookie of the year, all that kind of stuff. Um, so I it's hard to say, but I think anybody with that kind of talent at the end of the day wants to come to what's considered the best league in the world and, you know, see what they can do over here.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And plus, he'll be a free agent when he's like 30. So it's like we've seen this offseason with Burns and Fried and all these guys. Like being 30 as a
Yeah.
starting pitcher is like you're still going to get a crap ton of money.
Yeah. And, I can't say I know exactly how all the rules work um, now with this stuff, but I don't know if he's eligible. Like, let's say he comes out and he's, really good this year. I don't know if he can sign an extension after the season with the Dodgers. I really don't know if that's how the rules are for that.
Oh,
But
that's a good point.
I, you know, I don't think he's worried about how much money he's going to make. I'm sure he's going to make plenty of money over the years.
That's a good point. I thought back to this because obviously you were on the 2020 Rays. Did you ever think that when you're on the Rays that with Snell and Glass now that you'd be sitting next to guys who would make like 330 million in contracts in an offseason?
I mean, yeah, kind of. I mean, those guys are very good, and they already had proven at that point. Snell, obviously, Cy Young. I mean, just a dominant pitcher when all his stuff's working and he's in the zone. When he's in the zone, there might not be anybody better than Blake, you know. And Glass is just a freak too, like from the opposite side. I mean, he's just a stud throwing that ball as hard as he does, how big he is, and how athletic. I mean, they're just great pitchers. So I can't say I'm surprised that ended up happening. And then the next year I ended up in San Diego, and I'm in the infield with Tatis and Manny at one point, and it's you see that it's like holy crap. But it's good to see those guys are worth all that money, so it's good to see them getting what they deserve.
It is weird to think that like the Dodgers are just like using the Rays as a farm team, but the 2025 Dodgers rotation, obviously Otani's coming back, the two Rays guys, all the Japanese guys, plus like Miller, May, and Gonsolin. Like, should baseball even play a season this year, or should we just give the Dodgers the next World Series?
Man, listen, the Dodgers have assembled an incredible team, unbelievable talent. You can't deny that. On paper, they are absolutely the favorites. They won last year. But baseball's a funny sport, man. And there's a lot of really good players out there and a lot of really good teams. And I think in general, we see over 162 games that probably the most talented teams end up at the top after 162 games. But they're in the playoffs. A lot of times it's the hottest team at that time who ends up making a run or who wins it. Anything can happen in a 7 game series or, the shorter series. So, of course, the Dodgers are the favorite, but you got to play and just see what happens.
No, that you're right about the Dodgers. It is like disheartening from like a baseball fan perspective to see them assemble just all of the talent. Like I don't know if the Japanese pitchers know that there's other teams that they can go to, not just LA. But yeah, like the Diamondbacks that one year they went to the World Series, or even I think they said the Padres were like their toughest out last year in the playoffs. Um, so I don't know. Can we nitpick the Dodgers? Is there anything you can look at? They're like lineups getting old, pitchers are hurt a lot. Like what can we hang our hat on here?
Man, I'm not sure you can nitpick anything at the moment. Obviously, health is the biggest concern for any team because if your best players get hurt, well, you're kind of shit out of luck there. But they obviously have the depth like you just talked about. I mean, they have some great hitters there. Yeah, some of them are getting older, but Freddie Freeman is so good. Mookie, I can't really bet against those guys to have good seasons. I do think the rivalry with San Diego is real, and San Diego absolutely has the potential to take them down. I mean, the Diamondbacks are tough. It's you can't just gift them the regular season and the World Series, but they are tough to say here's a weakness that they need to figure out. But yeah, as a baseball fan, man, I was sad to see that. I would have liked to see if he went to San Diego because obviously would have been that rivalry would have went up even more. The players, it just would have been really cool to see. But I also respect what the Dodgers are doing. Building, you know, giving guys money, but also building that kind of culture and reputation that guys want to go there and play. So I get both sides of it. And then another thing we need to talk about for like Japan, I mean, it's pretty cool for the Japanese fans that they have three of their biggest stars on one team now.
Yeah.
As much as we don't like it because, parity and we're not growing up in LA or Dodger fans or whatever, but it's pretty cool for them that they can just tune in and watch Otani, Yamamoto, and Sasaki. I'm sure you Darvish was a little sad that it went that
Yeah.
way, but man, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out for sure.
That's a good point. The Padres, I feel like we're kind of, I don't want to say like banking on getting Sasaki, but like they haven't done a lot in this whole offseason. Like they've just kind of lost guys. Or the thing I've seen with them is I know they have limited payroll, but I just keep seeing them floating the potential of trading all of their guys. They're like, does anybody want Cease? How about Robert Suarez? How about Arias? They're just like, do you feel like it's a dangerous, like thin line they're walking? Because I know they traded Soto to save money and it worked out, but I feel like every offseason they're playing like Jenga to see like which piece they can pull out without having the thing all collapse. Do you think that's a dangerous strategy for them?
It's hard because I know Peter Seidler before he passed away was all in on trying to bring a championship to San Diego and was proving that with the amount of money he was putting out and all of that and his I know I think it's some of his family that's taken over since and maybe they're not as gung ho about it or they're more worried about the business and stuff like that. So it's there's a balance there for sure. And I get you're trying to find creative ways to get better and maybe trade where you feel like you have a little bit of surplus, or if these guys are coming up on contracts and you don't think you're going to be able to retain them, you're trying to get something for it. Um, there's a fine line there for sure. You don't want to trade somebody away, and that ends up being kind of like the missing piece. But at the same time, you got to make sure you feel good about your whole team and where the payroll or whatever is. So, they're stars, they're big stars, Manny, Toddy, those guys, they're not going anywhere. Cease, like I said, the contract thing, I don't know exactly where he's at with all that, but if they feel like they can get a good amount of guys for him, and maybe they feel like they can't sign him to that long-term extension, then that kind of is unfortunately how it goes sometimes. But obviously, like you said, the Soto deal ended up big time in their favor. So, you just gotta. Preller's been doing this forever. He's a smart dude. I'm sure they talk constantly about all this stuff, and they'll figure out what they think is best for the team.
I'm glad they didn't trade Cease because the rotation without Sasaki is very like Musgrove's out all year. So like they need him and King and Darvish to kind of be the guys. It would be a shame if they were like, crap, we shouldn't have traded him to whatever. Like that would be a bummer. The only piece I could think that like would make sense to like peel off is like Arias because he's supposed to make like 14 mil. Also, just like how crazy is 200 hits, one WAR? Do you ever remember? Like that's one of the crazier stats I feel like doesn't get talked about a
Yep.
lot.
And WAR, all that stuff is great. I think it depends who you're talking to about. Obviously, WAR is a big metric these days and how people evaluate players. But then you have more old school people who are just watching the game and see what they think is the impact on the game. And Arias is the best contact hitter in the game, I think, without a doubt. But like we've talked about before, that's in today's game. Sometimes that's tough to be because you're relying so heavily on just getting hits and not necessarily getting lucky, but there is an aspect of luck to being a hitter like that, because you can hit little line drives all you want, but if they go right at somebody, it don't matter. So he's just a super interesting player. Obviously, really good hitter, really good contact hitter. Um, and for the right team, definitely super valuable. Maybe the Padres feel like they can kind of replicate that in other ways. But in today's day, man, he's an anomaly for sure. I mean, he's a throwback, and he's just a different style of player, and a very good player without a doubt. But it's just can be tough sometimes to be that type of player now.
Also just like one of the worst defenders. Like I talked about this last week where it's like even at first or second doesn't matter. Terrible defender. Like he's a singles merchant. So like if he goes to the Yankees, like he's slapping the ball to left field where it's like there's less grass. So like that's
Mm-hmm.
harder for a guy to be a strictly singles guy there. So yeah, it's very interesting with him. 200 hits on paper sounds great, but then you look at it and you're like, oh, there's no power. And if he's in the field, it sucks. So I don't know if I want to pay him 15 mil.
Yeah, and that's the battle all front offices have because, like we said, you have a guy who hits over 300 and he gets all these hits, and you're like, how could you not want that guy on your team? But that's just not all they're looking at in today's baseball age. So, man, I think he can absolutely help a team win, but I understand the flip side of it too, where people are talking about dealing him too.
I had a question because this has come up a lot this offseason with the Blue Jays. They're always like in the mix for free agents. They're always in the top three. I think somebody said I wonder if there's like some sort of conspiracy where like they're just going to put Toronto in there just to like fuck with them. It's always the bridesmaid here. But like, do you think that all these guys like Burns and Snell and Teoscar and all these guys, they didn't want to go to Toronto? Like, how much of it a factor do you think the fact you have to play in a different country is? Is it just like the team structure, the way it's built? They don't think it's like good. Like, why do you think Toronto consistently misses out on guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, obviously have never been with the Blue Jays organization. Seems like it's well run and a good place to be. I think I think there's definitely something to it being in Canada and not the United States. Not like massive, but it's if you're an American, you are in a different country for half the year, even if you come back to the United States all the time. Seems like it's a great place to play. The stadium, fans. It's funny. They just seem to be the second pick for whatever reason. I thought it would have been really interesting if Sasaki picked there, instead of leaving Japan and coming to America, he's kind of leaving Japan and going to Canada. I thought that would have been interesting, definitely. But it's just a little different. I don't know about like tax stuff up there. I don't know if their paychecks are getting cut more. I don't know how all that works. And I don't, like I said, I don't think it's the number one reason or like downside to it, but I definitely think it's a factor. And yeah, they just unfortunately have come up just short on it seems like a lot of really good players recently. And I know they're connected to like Alonso right now and Santander and some of those guys. So they, I
It
think they'll
could.
end up with some good players, and obviously they have some good players already. But yeah, man, I kind of feel bad for Toronto. They're just missing on some really good players.
I feel like it was like Carabas is like, why doesn't anybody want to take their money? Like, what is it about Toronto that like, yeah, the Sasaki thing, even go back to the last offseason, like Otani was a finalist. Like, just you name a free agent, Toronto's been in the top three. So, yeah, I feel like I don't know. It's just like a fan's perspective. It would be kind of weird if I was a player to like have to go live in a foreign country, even though it's Major League Baseball. Um, but you mentioned Alonso. Like, there's a lot of buzz around him this offseason. Like, I friends with a lot of Mets fans, and they're like, don't believe the hype. He's going back to the Mets. And it's like, keep reading articles that say the other stuff. But I think maybe this can kind of speak to a larger thing about like the modern day first baseman and what teams value. Because 15 years ago, Pete would have gotten name a price because he's a power hitting first baseman. But have you seen that kind of shift away from that in the modern baseball? Like, how do you think first base as a position has evolved?
Yeah, I definitely think. And now Pete's a pretty good first baseman. I don't want to say he's not. I'm pretty sure he's up there with like in the picking stats. He's good at digging balls out. I believe. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he rates pretty solid as a first baseman. And um, he's still a pretty good athlete. But I do think, yeah, the modern day first baseman is more athletic in general than before. Um, I'm not exactly sure what his numbers were last year, and I'm sure you can tell me. I think they were down a little bit from kind of his best years. But my guess would be he's holding out for more years or more money than some of these teams are willing to go to for whatever reason. Obviously, when he is going good, he is one of the best power hitters in the game. I mean, I saw him in 2019 in Cincinnati. I believe it was his 50th home run that season. He hit. I was in the dugout, and he hit an absolute no doubter bomb to right center for his 50th homer, I believe it was, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like that. That was impressive right there. So he still can really impact the game, but I'm not totally sure why teams aren't pulling the trigger. My guess is again just the money or the years that he's looking for right now is more than teams are willing to go. But as we get closer to spring, it seems every year that stuff kind of starts to fall into place.
Yeah, and well, his this is the worst like WAR season of his career. That's a full season. And like he still had 34 homers last year, but like I get teams being turned off because he is going to be 30 this year. So it's like, do you really want to give? I think he was asking for 6 or 7 years. It's like, do you want to pay 37-year-old Pete Alonso? I probably don't. So it's got to be hard. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like he turned down a shorter term deal with the Mets. That's like, we'll give you more average annual value, and he's like, no, I still want more years. So, um, yeah, Toronto's still floating around there, but Toronto's interesting because like they're trying to trade Vlad Jr. Um, have you played against Vlad? I feel like that's one of those ones where it's like they were asking for this monstrous return, but they were asking for more than what they got for Juan Soto.
I guess I guess in 2020 that year with the Rays, we played against them. I can't like really remember though. I don't know if he was hurt or something. But like I can't picture him doing anything for some reason. Definitely played against Bichette in AAA, and then probably in 2022. But you know, Vlad, I guess maybe they think he is going to be looking for more money than they're willing to go or whatever after when he becomes a free agent. But man, I find it hard to believe that they would trade him away unless it's just some insane package, you know, that just is you can't turn down. But him and Bo Bichette are the faces of that franchise, and obviously Vlad is an unbelievable hitter when he's going right, and that's the type of trade that I think is pretty hard to explain to fans.
Yeah, the young superstar is like 27 years old. It's like it's a tough one. Um,
Yeah, I don't know. And it would be honestly, it would be kind of cool to see Alonso end up there because I saw something about they would move Vlad back to third base, which would be fun to see. And that would just be, I mean, there's some serious power in the corners there in that lineup. So, you know, Toronto's always tough. I feel like they're always pretty tough team, and that's a tough division, obviously. But yeah, I don't think you can trade Vlad. But Juan Soto got traded, so who knows?
twice, got traded
Twice.
twice.
Yep.
I had a couple Orioles things for you. One, there's a quote that I wanted your take on because they signed Tyler O'Neill this offseason, who had a monstrous year for Boston, kind of a strictly platoon guy, hits one side better than the other. But his agent, Scott Boras, had a quote where he said, there's no right-handed power. There's no right-handed bats in this game with power. Why is that? Why do you think that there's a lacking of power from that side of the plate?
I guess he means like available because I can definitely think of some right-handed power hitters off the top of my head, but um, you know, like Manny right away would be one that I thought of, but obviously Manny ain't going anywhere. But Tyler, man, I played with Tyler in the fall league in oh god, is that 2016? I don't know, long time ago. And yeah, he was on our team, and he was still with the Mariners originally back then. Coming up, I think he just finished in Double A that year. He was like Player of the Year, unbelievable numbers. Great dude, great dude. His dad was like Mr. Canada, like bodybuilding, like no joke. And Tyler is obviously in very good shape. He's a freak, and he looks like a little ball of muscle, but he is very athletic too. At the same time, but his power is amazing. Short swing. He's a good player. I think the Orioles will definitely benefit from him being on that team. The right-handed power thing, man. I'm not sure. I think for some reason in general, left-handed hitters have a little more natural loft to their swing, kind of get the ball in the air a little easier. Because I feel like me, I throw right-handed and bat left-handed. So if you're cross dominant like that, your top hand isn't your dominant hand, and so you kind of get a little more loop in that swing, a little more up. So that might be something. Those most of the right-handed hitters throw righty, so they're a little more like down because that top hand is stronger. So that it could be something like that, but I still, I think there's plenty of really good right-handed power hitters out there, just maybe not that are available to all the teams. But Tyler O'Neill, good signing, good dude. I think that it'd be very good for the Orioles. They're bringing their fence in too, aren't they? Again, left
Yeah, the
field.
GM was very happy about that because they were like,
Yeah,
oh, he's like, I wanted Gary Sanchez and Tyler O'Neill, so I brought the wall in 20 more feet or whatever.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
no longer the Baltimore or whatever it was called.
Yeah, it seemed like that was a big difference. So might be getting some more homers over there. I don't think anybody needs to move the walls back. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, like Ryan Mountcastle and Trey Mancini when he was here had the same thing where it's like they just kept hitting these monster 400-foot shots that would just like fall short somehow.
Yeah,
Um, it's
yeah,
kind of like
and
you in
there's
Norfolk.
nothing. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I hate that place. Uh, there's nothing worse than like catching a ball like that when you hit it and either knowing you hit it to the wrong part of the field or you think you got it and it just ends up a couple feet short and it's an out and you're just like, I crushed that ball and I'm walking back to the dugout. Sweet.
It's not fair. So yeah, I mean Tyler O'Neill's probably gonna have a monster year again this year. Were you surprised the Birds didn't bring back Corbin Burns? They got your guy Charlie Morton, former teammate, and another guy from Japan that you faced.
Yeah. Charlie is phenomenal. We talked about you texted me right after they signed him. Charlie's just one of the best dudes in baseball. I think he'll help that team a whole lot. Just being a vet, being a leader, and the type of guy he is. I told you the story. We clinched where I forget. We clinched somewhere with the Rays during that time, and we were all kind of celebrating after, and the confetti's everywhere. And this was like 5 minutes in, we're all having a good time, and Charlie was already helping the clubhouse guys sweep up the confetti and stuff on the floor. So that's Charlie Morton, and he got the whole team gifts too when we went to the World Series in Texas that were Texas themed. So he's Charlie's just great, and he's still a great pitcher. What Sagano, right?
Yeah.
Is the Japanese pitcher. So I don't think I actually faced him in Japan. Played his team, but only for 3 games, and there were definitely two Americans started against us, and I can't remember who the other one was, but I know he's had a lot of success over the years in Japan. I think when I was over there and maybe like 22, 23, I think he may kind of had like down years. I know he was posted and kind of didn't find a deal or didn't like it enough, whatever. But I know he can pitch pretty good too when he's rolling. So a little more of a question mark, but I would assume he'll pitch pretty well here. Burns, man, it that whole story seems like he wanted to be at home in Arizona, and you know I have not been in that situation where I had that option or anything like that, but having a family of my own and thinking about that would definitely give that team a leg up on being close to home. I mean, that's if you could live in your own house that you already have, you can see your wife and kids or whatever all the time or half the time. You don't got to move them anywhere. That's a huge plus. So I think it was really just that for him. I think if the money was similar, maybe not. Maybe Baltimore offered a little more or something, but I think it was close enough to where that would definitely outweigh some extra money.
I think that's something that we as fans don't put enough stock in when it comes to free agency. Like when you get to a level of Corbin Burns where he could have his pick of any team and you don't have to move. Or I feel like even this is a big thing with like spring training locations, like Nathaniel Lowe. Like, he's going to be fine going to the Nationals in West Palm because, what does he live in Orlando? So it's like, yeah, it's not
Yep.
that far. Um, yeah, I feel like that never comes up enough, but how sick must that be to be like, all right, well, now I don't have to buy a different or rent a different house. I can just stay here my own
Yeah,
game.
it's huge. It's huge. You're in your own home. Your family's there. I mean, you know everything already. You don't have to move stuff. You don't. It's just and their spring training is right there. I mean, those are huge advantages and just more peace of mind. Less to worry about. So I think anybody, again, if the money's similar, that's like a no brainer to want to be close to home. Assuming the team, it's like the Diamondbacks, they're competitive, all that kind of stuff. I think that definitely gives them a leg up on everybody else in that situation.
The AL East, I picked the Orioles last year to like run away with it. Obviously, they didn't. The Yankees, I think the Yankees are going to win it again this year, but I'm curious how you think the rest of that division will shake up. I think the Red Sox are going to be way more competitive this year. Tampa's rotation's healthy. What do you kind of think the AL East will look like this year?
Man, it seems like every year it's just going to be a battle. I think the Orioles are still a very tough team. Uh, they're Gunnar and Adley I think that, they take another step forward. They're going to be really good players. Some of those rotation pieces come together. I think they'll be very good. And the Red Sox definitely are a better team. I feel like they might make another move in free agency here before spring training. The Rays are the Rays, man. They're going to figure out a way to be right there. That's just what they do every year. Toronto, who knows? If they add some of those pieces we've been talking about, I mean, that's definitely a very good team too. The Yankees, man, I I don't know if they're the favorites in my mind. Obviously, they have some really good players and all that. I think the loss of Juan Soto is well, obviously it's massive. It's Juan Soto, but he was just so instrumental in everything to them. I think that's really going to hurt. The Aaron Judge is Aaron Judge, but I don't know, man. I think the loss of him literally on the field and just kind of like figuratively in the organization, I think it's just gonna hurt. I think they'll still be right there in the mix, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's one of those other teams that end up winning the AL East.
It's a good point about the Red Sox. They could easily go out and get Bregman. I like Crochet a lot. I like the Bueller. Like the Red Sox, they're just a fun young team now. Tampa's like McClanahan and a full year of Boz and Rasmussen. Like,
Yep.
yeah, there's no reason why they can't be 85 to 90 wins again.
Yep. I talked to Shane probably about 2 weeks ago. He's feeling great, ready to go. So pumped to watch him again get back out there, and he's nasty. It was funny. I was at my family doctor, and the he's actually one of the doctors for the UFC fights. And every time they're in Florida, he's like one of the cut men and over there. And there was UFC fights. I forget if it was Miami or Jacksonville or somewhere over there where they have them. And he's showing me pictures. He's like, man, yeah, there was baseball players there. I got pictures with them. And the first one, it was Aaron Judge was one, but then the next one was Glass now, and I'm just cracking up. And then the last one was Shane. So I texted Shane right after, laughing, and yeah, it was just funny. But man, the Rays can pitch. That's one thing they can definitely do, and those arms coming back, man, they'll be right there. They'll have a shot, and I would love to see them pull it off, man. I still kind of pull for the Rays after my time there.
You've turned me into a Rays person now. Like I'm thoroughly invested to the point where it's like my friends are like, aren't you an Orioles guy? It's like, well, yeah, but like Pete and Josh, like I want these guys to do well.
Yep.
So I just add that to another team. My last question is like, I know when I was growing up, the AL was always the dominant league in baseball. Watch the All-Star game, kick the NL's butt every year. Is it crazy to think that just like the NL is going to run baseball for the next like 5 to 10 years? Because all of the best teams in baseball are in the NL.
Yeah, man. I mean, I guess it's just kind of cyclical, It just ends up that way. I don't think either can dominate forever. Although at the moment it looks like the Dodgers are going to, be there for a long time. Um, but I think it's good. I think it's good to have that parity and kind of go back and forth. Excuse me. I don't know, man. It's just baseball's so funny, dude. You can't count on really anything. 162 games is forever. The best, most talented team usually will show itself over that time. But again, the playoffs, it's a different animal, man. I mean, the Dodgers, they run into some hot pitching in that first round, and maybe their bats aren't on, and their pitchers aren't on either. And then next thing you know, they're gone, even though they won 110 games during the regular season. So it's just crazy, and that's why we love it, and that's why we just watch all these games. And I'm looking forward to this season, definitely.
It's the best reality show on television. Yeah, professional sports, watching baseball every night. It's a little bit of a long season though, but yeah, I think. Well, unless I'm not gonna make that joke anyway. I was gonna say not if you're Anthony Rendon, whatever. It's like 65 games a year. That's like the perfect amount.
Hurt
All right.
Nationals fan.
Yeah, I'm allowed to be bitter about that. All right, Brian, this has been incredible. Thank you so much. I think people are really going to enjoy checking in, hearing what you have to say again. Don't be a stranger here on the pod. And yeah, all the best down there in Florida for you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It was fun talking to you.
One day later.
All right, late addition to the pod that Brian and I did yesterday. Some pretty substantial breaking news has happened over the last 24 hours. So Tanner Scott, Brian's old teammate in the Arizona Fall League, $72 million, 4 years of the LA Dodgers. That's $20 million in a signing bonus, $21 million deferred. Breaking as of this morning. This is something that I don't think any of us expected. Like, I know Tanner Scott was still floating around. There are some teams connected to him, but did you ever think that the LA Dodgers would come swooping in after all they've done this offseason to pick up another high expensive player?
No, I didn't. And we talked all about this yesterday. Um, and I, wasn't on Twitter or whatever for a little bit, and I opened it up, and the top tweet right there for me was Passan saying that, and I'm reading it, and it says Dodgers, and I'm like, are you kidding me? How does this keep happening? And it's tough, man. We talked about you got to play the season, and I tweeted this in response to Woods earlier. I was talking about our conversation. Even though they're a clear favorite, and that team on paper is absurd, you got to play the games, and then the playoffs are anything can happen. So definitely not excited to see another elite arm go over there, but can't gift them the World Series just like that.
It's hard, man. I feel like we should. Like, I don't know what else, because like yesterday we tried to nitpick the team, and I mentally was trying to get there, but I keep looking at their depth chart on like Fangraphs, and I'm just looking at like this giant rotation. Tanner, like the back of the bullpen, like you're telling me that Scott, Kopech, Trinan as like a 7, 8, 9. Like there's no, like sometimes it's like, oh, you got to shorten the game, you got to get to the bullpen or whatever. It's like you can't. If you go to the bullpen, it's worse. I don't understand. Like, and that now their luxury tax payroll for the Dodgers is $370 million. The next highest is the Phillies at 308. I just, it's just disheartening for if you're a fan of a team that's not the Dodgers. Like, I think Carabas said the other 29 teams should separate and form their own league. Like, I think I kind of like that idea now.
Yeah, man, it's tough. Listen, they are a juggernaut on paper. Obviously, health is the concern. They do have depth. But again, there's plenty other, talented teams out there, players that take pride in what they do and are professionals, and it's going to be a battle. They're going to get everybody's best shot every game. And yeah, when you can have Blake Snell go 5 or 6 innings and then go 7, 8, 9 like that, that is a tough day as a hitter, without a doubt. But baseball's crazy. It don't make a whole lot of sense most of the time. I'm still hopeful that another team's gonna take them down at some point. But man, they're tough. They're really good, and we've been talking about this. They've obviously figured out how to maximize their massive assets, financially and all that stuff. They figured out how to really do that well.
Yeah, it's I don't know, but so this is before this Tanner Scott signing with 21 million deferred. That's going to be hilarious to spread that out. But before this, they had 8 players that they owe deferred money to, and it ends up being more than $1 billion from 2028 to 2046. The Mets and the Red Sox are the next closest teams, and they only have 137 and 130 million of deferred money. So the Dodgers have 10 times the amount of deferred money coming up. No team other than that has more than 50. we were talking a little bit about this, but like, why do you feel like it's only the Dodgers that have figured out this massive loophole in luxury tax, payments and contracts and situations that like you could just spread that sucker out for like 50 years after and they'll be fine? Why is nobody else doing this?
Yeah, so this was the question we were texting about and really got us to hop on here again, I guess, because it is interesting to me. And excuse me, disclaimer: I'm by no means an expert. I'm not an accountant. I'm not going to say I understand it perfectly. This is kind of what I've gathered, at least. So, yeah, we were talking. Why don't other teams do this, right? Why don't they just defer money, keep all those numbers down, and why can't they just do the same and compete that way? Well, from what we've seen, at least, my understanding now is you still have to have all that money basically right away in order to pay these players. So the deferred money within basically a year and a half, I think July was the month, like the following July, it needs to be in basically an escrow account at that time to pay the player, as it goes on, whatever's in the contract. So even though they're spreading that money over all those years for the luxury tax purposes, the team still has to have that cash, basically. So that, to me, answers that question, why the smaller market teams aren't doing this, because they probably don't have the cash, all that cash at the right time, which is tough because then the Dodgers and I guess the Mets or maybe a few other teams really can operate at a different level than these other teams. So that really, I'm starting to feel more like it is an unfair advantage that they have. But also, like we talked about too, the Dodgers are in a unique position where it makes sense from the player's perspective to take some of these deferrals for the tax reasons. It lowers their tax bracket, and we're talking about a ton of money. I get that, and most normal people are probably like, who cares about that? You're making all this money anyway, and absolutely. But if you take those deferrals over time, and then you're not in California when you're making the rest of that money, and you live in like Florida or something like I do, well, you're going to get a tax break on that. And when you're talking about as much money as we're talking about, that's a big difference in the amount of money you're actually, receiving. So they have all that money that they can use. And as the player, it makes more sense to actually take that deferred money than it would if you were getting it from the Tampa Bay Rays or whoever. So, yeah, it's kind of the only other teams in that situation, that would have that type of advantage would be the other California teams, the Angels, the Padres, and the Giants. So really, yeah, the Dodgers are operating where they have all that money that most of the other teams do not have, and there's a more incentive from the player to take the deferred money than other teams. So yeah, it's kind of screwed.
Well, it's cool for the player that like they get to see their money grow, like when it gets paid out in 30 years or whatever. But I was reading like there's an ESPN story. It was like a general manager said if it was really that beneficial for a team to have all this deferred money, we'd see a lot more of it. So maybe there's some like downsides to this. Maybe it's the fact that like you said, they have to have the cash on hand in the future. Like the Otani contract where he made 2 million, but he actually is going to be make 46 for the purpose of whatever. But the 46 goes into an account that like they have to have the money for. So, yeah, there's a lot of moving parts on this. I wish there was like a simpler explanation, and I wish I also had like an accounting degree so I could figure out some of this. Um, but I guess maybe that's what it comes down to, where it's like if it was that awesome of a thing, everybody would be doing it, I guess.
Yeah, it's just, to me now, it just seems like the teams, I guess I thought before the teams, you just needed that money as time went on. You didn't need it right away. But my understanding now is that you basically need that money, not right away, but pretty much right away. So tougher for the smaller market teams or the owners who don't have as much money as, say, the Dodgers or the Mets or whatever. But just this, and I was telling you just from my personal experience, people in the MLB, you you pay taxes in every state that you play in. So if you're, for example, the Dodgers, 81 games at least, you're paying the California state tax for, how it breaks down per day, basically. So that tax is higher than, say, if you go play in Florida for 10 days. So really, it's just the Dodgers get to keep down their luxury tax stuff and build an unbelievable team, while the players that they are paying and recruiting get some tax breaks from their perspective. And, on top of it all, the Dodgers have definitely built a reputation and a culture that is great for the players, and people want to go there and play, which is a part of it too.
Yes, I think everybody wants to go and win. The Dodgers have proven, even before they won the World Series and stuff, that like this is a team that consistently will be at the top of the division and will be in the playoffs at varying levels. Regardless, it is, I don't know, but do you think that the next CBA is coming up? I've heard this flown around there a couple times. It's just like, do you think that this will be mentioned in the next CBA? Like, do you think there should be, I mean, I think there should be some sort of cap on deferred payments. I think there should be like a percentage that you're not allowed to exceed. So we don't have like, the Dodgers could still go out and do, another free agent deal, deferred money situation. Like, what if they just they went and got Santander or something, and they just deferred 100 million of that? Like, it's not real money at this point to them. So I don't know. I think there should be something done about this.
Yes, I think they're absolutely now. I think absolutely something needs to be done about it. The tricky part is the CBA. From the Players Association perspective, what they really want is for guys to get paid and to keep making a lot of money. And this is a way for guys to get paid. So I don't know how much incentive from the MLBPA there is to do something about this. I think it's more on the MLB and the owners of the, MLB teams to say, we have to make some sort of rule about this. Now, obviously the Dodgers ownership group will not, they won't be a fan of that. So I don't know how that kind of power struggle plays out, but I don't think there's a ton the Players Association at least can do about it. And even let's say they do something, it can't affect what the Dodgers have already done, right? Anything
Right.
that's in there is already done. So my guess is enough owners of the other teams need to say, hey, this is truly an unfair advantage that the Dodgers have right now, and we have to make some adjustments, which I agree with, but that's my guess on that. And you know what? But if when did you say the CBA is up?
After 2026
So we
season.
got the 25 season and the 26 season. So what if the Dodgers don't win either of those World Series?
Oh, then it's cool then. Yeah, everything's fine.
Exactly. So like, if they rattle off the next two World Series and they're three-peat champions, okay, I think more people are going to be like, hey, we got to do something about this. But if they don't win either of them, or maybe they win one, I don't know. Do our owners like, well, it's not really working for them or whatever? I don't know. But in my opinion, I agree with you. I think there's got to be some sort of adjustment, and I'm not going to say I'm smart enough to know exactly what that is, but
Yeah.
I feel like something's got to be done.
What if just like deferred money counts towards current payroll? So like Otani would actually count as 70 million and all these other guys, like it would count as like a present day. Or I hesitate for salary cap, but like we could, I don't know what the penalties are. I feel like you have to pick 10 spots lower in the draft already. And I feel like you get fined a bunch of money, but for teams like the Dodgers and Mets, the money's not a problem. I don't know what other penalties we could in place on them or place on them. So make that harsher. I don't know. I don't know what that would look like, but these are all things that they're gonna have to take a look at. I don't know. Otherwise, we're heading towards a lockout again, and we're gonna have like Bob Nightingale save us. So, um, just we'll run it back.
Yeah, I don't see a salary cap ever happening in baseball, just because it's obviously, like I said, the MLBPA is about players making money, and that would cap what the players can make. So that is in all my dealings with them, and everything that I know about it, and it's a very strong union. Obviously, that is like a non-starter for them. Can it change? Sure, but I would be shocked if that ever happens. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Like maybe like you said, it counts towards the luxury tax. It doesn't. Whatever, you don't get those breaks. That might be the best way to do it. But yeah, that I would love to be at the next owners meetings or whatever, and kind of hear everyone yelling at what's his face, the Manfred, about this stuff, because it's just I think it's interesting.
Yeah,
Aside from not growing up a Dodgers fan or anything like that, and would rather see that spread around a little more. I think
yeah.
it's just kind of interesting in general.
The competitive balance of our sport is hanging in the balance. Yeah. So this is it's just I don't know, just disheartening, but always great having you hop on and do a little addition to the pod we did yesterday. So I think people will enjoy this, and yeah, let's go see the Dodgers win another World Series. Why not? Just I'm dead inside at this point.
Oh man, yeah. Thanks for having me back, and we'll got to see how the season plays out, man.